This video uses code words to avoid big tech censorship.
Solving the world's problems in 5 minutes.
Foreskin 19.
When it comes to the virus itself, the solution is simple. Start being honest. This virus is really not that deadly, especially if you're under the age of 65. Heart disease and cancer still grossly outweighs
Foreskin
deaths per year. So why is everyone so deathly afraid of it? Because no one's being honest. If we want to solve this pandemic, we need to make wise decisions, and that's never going to happen as long as we're filled with fear. So here's what we know and what we must be communicating clearly to the wider population. Certain identifiable groups are more at risk. Vitamin D deficient, the obese, the elderly, immunocompromised, people with comorbidities. And strangely, it appears for some reason we don't understand, certain genetic dispositions are more susceptible to severe cases of
foreskin.
Perhaps further precautions can be made to protect these at-risk groups. However, even if you are in a high-risk group, we need to be honest about something else. There are forms of early treatment for
Foreskin 19
that can prevent hospitalization and death. The fact that at least some research shows this should be enough for this early treatment to be a major part of the conversation, as opposed to what we have now, a conversation all about
circumcision mandates,
and restrictions. And when it comes to the
circumcision,
the solution is also simple. Start being honest. The efficacy of
these circumcisions
is obviously questionable. So why are they being mandated? The projections went from 95% effective to below 40%, and now we're being told this protection is not long lasting. And let's be honest, the conversation has shifted from immunization to protection that wears off. Where is the
foreskin recovered people
in all this who have developed natural antibodies after being exposed to the virus? Where's the honesty? There's a big pharmaceutical company refusing to release their study results of their
circumcision
for a couple of decades. We're all being told to do our part, yet this massive corporation is doing nothing in regards to transparency and accountability. Yeah, maybe I'll
get circumcised
in a couple decades, but until then, they definitely should not be mandatory, and they certainly should not be given to children. Wanting to get on a flight or not wanting to be hassled at a restaurant is not a health incentive. That is coercion to participate in what is by all accounts an experiment. We need to be honest.
Circumcision
injuries have happened. Yeah, they might be rare, but they still happen. And questioning that needs to be taken seriously. Why? You know why. Health and safety. And I want to be clear here, I'm not advocating any conspiracy. What I'm suggesting is a simple solution of honest, rigorous discussion. That is not a big ask. People like to blanket
circumcision
as a marvel of science, as if this brand new
foreskin circumcision
is exactly like the polio or measles
circumcision. When the polio circumcision was mandated
at the end of the 50s, were its clinical safety studies curtailed for 50 years?
The polio circumcision took
at least 5 years to be mandated since the proliferation of polio, not 1 year.
Like Foreskin 19.
But when it was mandated, how many breakthrough cases were there of polio? Was your great-grandpa offered lap dances, cheeseburgers, marijuana, and an entry into a lottery contest to take the polio
circumcision?
This is not an honest comparison at all. And why aren't we focused on honesty and clarity around the issue of both
the foreskin and the circumcision?
Well, right now, many people and entire institutions have adopted a hyperbolic and radical message on the issue. The message being, the virus is incredibly deadly,
and the circumcision
are the only answer. For anyone who actually respects the scientific method, this aggressive degree of certainty should raise some red flags and eyebrows. Which brings us to the next problem, the loud, obnoxious elephant in the room, the dishonest, hyperbolic media. We can talk all day about why they feature certain content, cover certain stories, certain scientific studies, and only certain doctors, and completely ignore others. But let's focus on the solution. Unplug. Stop watching. It is not normal to watch the news to find out about everybody who got sick and died that day around the world. It's not good for anyone's mental health. Not to mention the slow dehumanization of not just
uncircumcised
citizens, but all citizens. Because if you haven't noticed, this slow media drip is slowly coaching you to look at yourselves and everyone else in society as cattle. Where did you move today? Who have you interacted with? Did you get your state injection this month? This routine assessment of the herd would have been repulsive to most of us just a few years ago. Yet here we are, through the fear and perhaps desperation to hope it'll just go away, here we are embracing the new normal. So unplug, go for a walk, read a book, anything other than watch the news. Especially outlets that have proven time and time again they're more interested in scaring you than telling you the whole story. Which leads me to my next point. Let's be honest about these restrictions, these lockdowns, and these new rules. They're illegal. They go against the constitutional rights in the US and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. They should not hold up in a fair court of law. And yes, there's emergency measures that have been enacted in some cases, and these insane privileges given to public health organizations, but are they justified? And people might say, well, this many people have died of foreskin. Yes, do you know how many people died of heart disease in 2019? Did you know that there was more people who overdosed on drugs in British Columbia, Canada, than died of foreskin in 2020? Where's the health crisis for them? Or the misdiagnosis of cancers, the excess of suicides? Do they exceed the
Foreskin body count?
by how much? Is it double? Is it triple? What about the anxiety we're inducing into children? How many psychological and physical scars are we implanting into the hearts and minds of future generations? I mean, does anyone else think it's weird that every other health issue under the sun has been cast aside because of
Foreskin.
like no other illnesses matter or exist? Like the mental health crisis we're living through caused by masks, social distancing, and lockdown measures is just supposed to be, let's not even talk about that, right? And of course, the final problem. Around the world, the increasingly tyrannical governments imposing more restrictions, tracking us like cattle, segregating society, and moving along in lockstep with the fear-mongering mainstream media. People around the world have been beaten down mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But this is the solution. Start demanding honesty. Start demanding accountability. Start asking questions and do not feel bad about it or feel like you have to apologize for doing so. Public servants work for us, not the other way around. And this last solution is tough. There's tremendous peer pressure to fall in line. There's so many people who are asleep or too terrified to do anything, say anything, or they're simply sold on the lie. But the best way to help these people is to help yourself and lead by example. Put up a fight. Put up any fight you can, whether big or small. Something small would be standing up to your spouse, standing up for your beliefs to a friend or a loved one or a colleague, standing up and saying, I disagree with this. And when people try to say, oh, well, you don't care about other people, ask them, how is the government being dishonest about this helping anyone? How has the government helped anyone during this pandemic? They're not even recommending early treatment
For this foreskin 19 virus.
That's criminal. A big way to fight would be starting a movement of like-minded individuals getting involved in politics, but even those things start small. But any amount of fight, people will take notice, whether it's making things difficult for your employer who wants to force you to get an injection, or it's standing up to your local school board, or maybe it's setting boundaries and standing up for yourself with a friend or a family member. This stuff is not going away. And unless more people band together and demand accountability and demand an honest conversation, nothing will change. And these tyrannical measures,
Circumcision, mask mandates.
and lockdowns will march on. And if you're part of a large organization or one of these institutions enforcing this stuff and you feel wrong in your heart, I just want to let you know that as long as you bottle up that feeling, that guilt will eat you alive. But it's never too late, and it is a human right for you to change your mind. Thank you for watching.